Good afternoon and happy Tuesday to you. Welcome to Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Bally Bet, coming soon to Ohio. Nathan Zagura and the voice of the Cleveland Browns, Jim Donovan, in studio here at the Cross Country Mortgage Campus in Berea. Jim, great to see you. Great to have you in the studio.
It is nice to be here. What a beautiful day outside. It's good to be here. Good to see you. We've had a busy couple of weeks. Busier than I think a lot of people thought was going to be able for them to get these things that they got done.
Yeah, and really one of the busiest couple of weeks of any team in the National Football League when you think about all the bodies that were added to this roster.
Yeah, because I think, and I'm sure you picked up these vibes, but around town, I think a lot of people were really fearful when they heard, wow, they're so far over the cap. But I mean, they knew they were that far over the cap, and it was just moving things around, a bit of a shell game, and they get down and they get into a healthy situation, and then they spend. But then I think when they didn't get Javon Hargrave, when the bell rang, I think a lot of people panicked and said, oh my gosh, what are they going to be able to do now? Are they going to be able to do anything?
Yeah.
And then they did. I mean, and they've really done it very systematically, as they have in the past, but it's at a very high rate. A higher rate of signings than I thought.
Yeah, and I think what was interesting coming out of Andrew Berry's talk at the owners' meeting was that they didn't think they were going to be able to get a safety that was going to have a significant contract. And I think it's kind of easy to do the math, and you look at what Javon Hargrave got paid by the 49ers and say, okay, well, the Browns were into the end. They were able to end up getting Dalvin Tomlinson and Juan Thornhill for the same amount of money. So you were able to get a defensive tackle. You were able to get an edge. You were able to get a safety, bring back a lot of those linebackers. And then at the end, you know, after you got tight end Jordan Akins, you were able to go on the offense and get Elijah Moore via trade, and then sign Marquise Goodwin.
Yeah, well done. I mean, really well done. And then also, picking up these other players that kind of fill things out. You know, the offensive lineman, it looks like is coming here, Wes Martin. And then you get specific players that really have made their way in the NFL by virtue of special teams. So Michael Ford and the kid Adams coming in, the linebacker coming in, who seemed like, Ray Bubba Ventrone really looked at those players and said, had those guys, or had at least one of them, got to have him back, want to get this guy. But when you're doing that, then, really getting players that are signature special teams players, it kind of tells you where your roster is.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's pretty complete right now.
It'd be a heck of a time trying to make this team.
It's going to be very difficult, and they still have, I think, 8 picks it is coming up in this draft. I'd probably be surprised as I sit here right now if they drafted 8 guys. There just isn't room for 8 guys on this roster.
Well, I was going to throw this at you. They only have 4 picks next year, right? And so you wonder, will they, stock up?
Yeah.
On draft weekend, maybe not with bodies, but with picks, but for picks certainly next year, because, you're looking at 4 picks.
Yeah, I think they will do that, and there's always a thought that when you trade a 5th-round pick in this year's draft, you can always get a 4th-round pick in the future year, and so you're able to take some picks of guys that you wouldn't want, bump them up around for next year. I absolutely think they will do that, and, when you look at what we've got here, they checked basically all the boxes before we even got to the draft, and now you're going in the draft. It'll be the second year in a row that as of now you won't have a pick in the first 2 rounds. Last year, obviously, you traded out of the second round. You ended up getting MJ Emerson with your first pick in the 3rd round, but I don't think that they go into this draft right now, and I'm curious if you do, saying we have to draft this position with our first pick, nor do they necessarily need that first pick to be somebody who comes in and makes an impact right away. You'd like that, sure, but it doesn't feel like it's a necessity right now.
Oh, I definitely feel that, yeah. And I think that's why, they completed this thing in free agency and got so much work done there. I definitely feel that. I look at them right now, and I think we share the same vision that they look very, very complete. Very complete now and well-stocked at wide receiver. They have wide receivers coming out of their ears right now. So I look at that. The only other the thing I would maybe take a look at possibly, and you and I talked about this last week when we saw each other, and that is maybe they'll go get another running back, right?
Yeah,
and
I think that could be
might be the play right away.
It could be.
Yeah, when they would be picking, because, you're taking a look, you have Chubb, and you've got Jerome Ford, but you've lost Dearness Johnson. You assume that, Kareem Hunt's going to sign somewhere. What do you have left then after that?
Yeah, and I think that becomes something that prior to free agency, the notion that the Browns would be taking a running back with one of their first few picks, even, let's call it, probably seemed a little bit crazy. And now it feels very much in play because it's a very deep running back draft. Now, if they go out and, say, sign a veteran like a Jerick McKinnon to play on third down, too, I think would make a lot of sense for the Browns, then that changes the calculus a little bit. But as it stands right now, you've got Nick Chubb, you've got Jerome Ford, and are you ready to trust Jerome Ford in pass protection? And I'm not saying there's a rookie that comes in that you would. That's always kind of the slow learning curve. But maybe there's somebody that they think there is, in this draft, you're getting a guy in the third round that in most drafts would have been a second-round talent or even better because of just how deep that running back class is.
Yeah, and the other thing is, if you go back a year ago, I would have never thought the Browns would have drafted a cornerback right away. But they did and got Martin Emerson came in here. And as he played through the year, you just say, wow, thank heavens they did draft him, even though we thought, oh, they're all set. They've got Newsome, they've got Ward, they've got A.J. Green, they have other people. Yeah, they have Greedy Williams. They have other people, too, and they're well-stocked there at cornerback. And why are they doing that? But that guy played so well, and they obviously identified him as a really unique talent, the biggest corner, really, they have. I mean, I know A.J. Green's big, but not fully body-wise as big as Emerson. And he went in and really played well. He had some outstanding games for the Browns the more he played.
And he was great. It was our first preseason game together in Jacksonville where he got the interception.
Stole the ball.
Stole the ball right away. That's right. He stole the ball. And you hope that you can find a guy like M.J. Emerson who probably in a redraft, ends up as a second-round pick or maybe late in the first round. And that's what the goal is. But what do you really need? And then one more thing for people to kind of keep in the back of their mind is the way that the cuts were made on John Johnson and on Jadeveon Clowney, that you will free up about $10 million post June 1st. And so if there is a veteran out there that's not necessarily interested in an entire offseason program on the defensive line, but wants to come into training camp and all of that, you'll have the ability to have that flexibility or to carry that money forward for next year when, that Deshaun Watson gets significantly more expensive for this team.
Right, and, you can get a good deal out of that situation because veterans are, they're smart and they know what they want to do and what they don't want to do. And maybe, like you said, they don't want to be here for OTAs. They don't want to be here for a mandatory mini camp. And they're saying, hey, listen, let's surmise the situation. Cleveland looks good. They have the money. Once they get that windfall of cash there. And that's the thing everybody has to remember. And I know there was people were a little bit down when Hargrave went to San Francisco. And the fact is, you have to look at it. The key thing is, remember, it is free agency.
That's right.
It's free. They're free. Okay, and they can make a choice. The player ultimately makes the choice. I mean, he can be advised by, his attorney, his representative, his agent, and all of that. But in the end, he makes a determination as to this is the right deal, this is the right spot. I think the Browns were right in there on that. I think they knew the price. I don't think they blinked on that. I think, there were a lot of things that made that look right. Namely that he played for Jim Schwartz, okay, and he played for him in Philadelphia, and now Jim Schwartz is here as the defensive coordinator. But also remember, he's looking at a situation where he was, in a Super Bowl, and now he's looking at another team that maybe that he played against it, if they had a healthy quarterback that day, they might have gone to the Super Bowl. He might have been a runner-up in the NFC. So you have to remember that there's a player's heart choice in these free agency deals, and I think he made a choice, right? I don't think it was that the Browns were below market price at all. I think they were right there. They knew it. They probably targeted him right away and got into the fray and were right in it until the end.
And I think people that want to – obviously the 49ers have been so good under Kyle Shanahan, but also the NFC is not right now on the level of the AFC. And going to an NFC team that is good is pretty much a lock that you're going to be in the playoffs. It's pretty much a lock the Niners are going to find their way in the playoffs regardless of what happens to them at quarterback, whether you get some Purdy, some Darnold, some Lance, all of it. That defense is going to be so good. So, and I think ultimately Browns fans, what you'll look at this season is Dalvin Tomlinson and Juan Thornhill. How do they perform relative to, Hargrave? And that's going to be, kind of what you ended up getting as a result of not getting Hargrave. And Dalvin Tomlinson was right there after Hargrave was the next defensive tackle they wanted. And you got your free safety as well. So it felt like a very efficient, a very judicious, and it's funny because you were mentioning the fans. It's very easy, I think, at free agent to panic.
Oh, yeah.
To get a lot of panic going, we're not going to get anybody. And if you think about it, we hit basically everything that we wanted on the defensive line, an edge and a defensive tackle. And the second level, you brought back Anthony Walker Jr., you brought back Taki, you signed Kunashik, who was so good on special teams, and then Adams, who was so good on special teams. On the back end, you needed a free safety. You got that. You probably still need a third safety. And then you bring in that Ford from Atlanta who can play special teams but can also play some slot corner for you. And then offensively, what did you want? You wanted to get wide receivers with speed. And you got two of them, one on a rookie deal who they loved coming out of college at Ole Miss.
And I think they wanted to get Ethan Pocic back.
And that was massive.
And that was massive because I think really he had played so well for the Browns last year, taking over so early for the Browns, the second play of preseason, that I think a lot of people thought he played so well, you probably can't get him back. And they get him back, and believe me, folks, that's critical because when he did go out, and I give Hjalte Froholt all the credit in the world for holding down the center spot. But when he did go out, things got gummed up, I think, offensively, certainly in the running game and in every aspect of the offense. So that was a very, very big move. That was really heartening to see that they were able to bring him back.
Yeah, and I think that there was a feeling in this building when they did their exit interviews with Ethan Pocic that was the last time he was going to be in this building.
Yeah.
And I think it worked out that a combination of, there were a lot of centers on the market. He really loved playing with this line and for Bill Callahan, and so he was able to come back. And I think the Browns got a great deal on him because Nick Harris beat him out last year. People have to remember that. Nick Harris won the starting job to be the center, got hurt, but you don't know what you would have in Nick Harris, and that would be a question mark in the middle of your offensive line. And now Nick Harris is back to be that depth guy behind, Ethan Pocic. I think you're right. I think that was a big move to kind of just solidify things, and especially in our division where you've got a lot of big guys in the interior of defensive lines. Ethan Pocic is 6'6", 330. He's a big man. I mean, he's a huge man.
Very, very different than Nick Harris.
Physically, couldn't be more different.
Couldn't be more different, right? And was going to and plays much different than with Nick Harris. You remember in Green Bay Christmas Day a couple of years ago.
Nick Harris played great.
He played fantastic.
Yeah.
And I think they liked him anyway because they drafted him.
Sure.
But I think they looked at him in that game and said, wow, look at he can get out. He's very, very mobile. We can do things. We're going to move away from J.C. Tretter and we're going to go to him. But man, that is tough luck. For him, because I mean, at this time last year, he was putting on all kinds of extra weight to, be ready for the position and go out and take over as the Browns center, fully being ahead of anybody that came in like a Pocic because he knew the offense. I mean, he had been around, and then he goes out right away and just suffers that horrible injury down in Jacksonville. Tough break. Yeah, that's the tough part of the business, isn't it?
It is, and it doesn't stop. And for Nick Harris, he was here every single day last year.
He never left, right, during the offseason?
And guess what? He's doing it again because he's rehabbing, and he knows they signed Ethan Pocic. And so for Nick Harris to get the opportunity that he wants, it is going to take an injury most likely to Ethan Pocic, which nobody wants to see. And it's crazy because now he's in the last year of his rookie deal, and so will it ever come? Will the time ever come for Nick Harris as a Cleveland Brown? And
right.
You don't know, and you're right. That is the tough part of this business.
Because they were so happy when they got him out of Washington. He was a very smart player.
Yep.
Played to being undersized a little bit, but played ahead of that because he knew the game and he knew the tricks of the trade, so to speak. And he offered them so much, really, to come in and do that. The year they went to the playoffs, he ended up, remember a couple of games he ended up playing guard, didn't he?
Yeah, he played guard I want to say in the New York games.
Right. He played in the Sunday night game against the Giants.
Yep.
Then we went back in we didn't go back, but the Jets.
No, we did not.
Following week.
Neither did our receivers.
That's right. Yeah. He could have lined up as a wide receiver. They could have used him that day.
Goodness gracious. That was wild. But you're right. He did play a little bit of guard there and undersized for that position. But your Christmas Day, we went out there, and if I recall, we averaged over 5 yards a carry. We ran for about 200 yards. Chubb was great. D'Ernest had some big runs.
And you could visibly see Nick Harris.
You could see him come out and pull around the outside and some of the pin pull that we run, which, he was great at. Well, this is already a treat. We've got the voice with us here for the full show today, and it's also a special Tuesday edition of the Mailbag. You can tweet us your questions at Browns_Daily. Use the hashtag #CBD. So questions for the voice. This is your chance to get them out right now. When we come back, we're going to head down to the NFL owners meetings. We're going to hear highlights from Browns head coach Kevin Stefanski's 30-minute meeting with the media late yesterday. That's coming up next here on Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Bally Bet, coming soon to Ohio. All right, welcome back to Cleveland Browns Daily. If a car, truck, or motorcycle accident has caused you injury, call the injury lawyers at 1-800-ELK Ohio for a free case review. Elk & Elk, proud partner of the Cleveland Browns. Let's head down to the owners' meetings in sunny Arizona. This is Browns head coach Kevin Stefanski. Highlights of his 30-minute meeting with the media late yesterday.
You guys are down.
Yeah. I think in a bunch of different ways. I don't think he's just a slot. I know a lot of players that are his size kind of get, okay, he must be a slot. He's won plenty on the outside as well. He's the type of player you just want to get the ball in his hands. And I think if you go back to his college tape, there was a ton of down the field throws. There's opportunities to hand it to him, throw it to him over the middle, throw it to him outside. I mean, I just think there's no shortage of ways that you want to get him the football.
How about just the pass catchers globally? Now, you added Elijah, you've added Marquise, you've added Jordan. So how do you just feel about the pass catching?
Yeah, I feel good. I mean, with those three guys you mentioned, Mary Kay, I think, Marquise brings a veteran element to our room, brings certainly speed. He's made a lot of plays in his career. He's made a lot of big plays in his career. A bunch of long yardage touchdowns. And another guy that, you're just trying to get these guys the ball doing what they do best. And Marquise is a guy that we're excited about. Just he gets off the bus and the DBs are aware of his speed. And then Jordan, just a guy that we played against this year. So certainly going into the game this year, we knew the type of player he was. Has had a unique career, but it is a really good run after the catch type of player. So felt like he was available, for us at the right opportunity.
We're starting from 0 last year. OTA 1 with Deshaun. Is there a number where you're starting this year?
What's the scale? 0 to... Yeah, gosh, it's so hard. I don't know. I don't know if there's a good number to give you. I would say he's going to be way more comfortable. Just, it's a new offense. It's a new verbiage, those type of things. Year 2 now for him, he'll be more comfortable. I think the big piece is getting comfortable with your teammates. There's no substitute for reps. There's no substitute for practice reps or game reps. So I think all those are valuable. I think just him having the guys down to Houston to throw, I think is great, and that's something he's always done in his career and wants to make that a priority to have the guys down there and around him. So I think all of that adds up, but I know he and any player going into year 2 will be much more comfortable.
Was Dobbs always the guy that you wanted to bring in as that number 2?
Yeah, I think the world of Josh Dobbs, the person, the player. He got an opportunity to play some meaningful football games last season, which I think was good for him. But Dobbs is a favorite of our building. I mean, he's beloved in that building. I think everybody saw what he can do in our system, or just in any in game settings. He's a playmaker. So we're really thrilled that he is back. And then the person, just the fit in the room between Deshaun, Josh, Kellen. I mean, these are really solid people that we're excited about.
I was guessing that was the question more. Deshaun, was having a guy that Deshaun had worked with, was it important that kind of to have that guy as number 2?
I think it helps. I don't think that it was a prerequisite necessarily. I think it helps when you have guys that you've been through the battles with them, and you know what makes them tick and those type of things. I think the role of the backup quarterbacks is to both support the starter and challenge the starter. Challenge the starter in the way that you prepare. Make sure that you're constantly pushing each other, and I think that's what Dobbsy and I think Kellen does that as well.
How about Anthony Walker? Is he also a favorite of the building?
He is. Yeah, is he a favorite of you guys too? Yeah, A-Walks. He's I love the guy. Love everything about him. Love what he brings to our team. He was playing really good football before he was injured last season, unfortunately. But he's a good football player. He's awesome in the locker room. He's the son of a coach. When he's done playing 10 years from now, I'm going to try to convince him to coach. He's rock solid.
Do you feel like, it seemed like Deshaun, when he was describing what might be different this year, mentioned having a little bit more jurisdiction to whatever, run the show at the line and do those kinds of things. So will you put more on his plate in that way this year and kind of let him roll a little bit?
Yeah, I think with all that, I think comfort in the system, that certainly comes. And And the quarterback we say this all the time, has the trump card because he's got the best view of it from where he is. So there were times last year where Deshaun made great adjustments to what we're doing, and he always has that ability. I think as he becomes more comfortable in our system, he'll know when and where to do that more often. A lot of times when you're playing no huddle, that comes up more often than not. When you're at the line of scrimmage, you're making those decisions. So he did it some last year. I think that will only grow the more reps he gets in our system.
So have you backed off on OTAs a little bit based on what's happening with your training camp and all
Yeah,
that?
so we're going to end a week early. So we'll have 2 weeks of OTAs into our mini camp as opposed to 3 weeks of OTAs into our mini camp. So it'll be OTAs 1 through 3, OTAs 4 through 6, then a mini camp, and then we'll be done because we're going to come back a week early. So took a week off of the off-season program, added it to training camp. Yeah, Dalvin's a lot. I'll start with the person. He's a really, really good person. Awesome in the building. Provides great leadership to some of our young players. And then he's a big man, and he's a big, powerful man. He gets off the football, so we feel like he's a plus in the run game. He's pushing the pocket in the pass game, so it just was a key piece for us in this free agency.
How excited was Jim with what you guys were able to do the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, Jim, the entire defensive staff, we're all thrilled with the guys that we've been able to add really at all levels of the defense. Like we talked about earlier, you're always looking for more, and I promise you every coach wants more. But yeah, Jim is and the staff, they're excited. We're meeting for a long time right now, just trying to figure out where we want to go with this defense and hammer it away so that April 17th we're ready to go when the players show up.
Kevin, what makes you feel confident that Deshaun is the quarterback that you guys spent all this money on and all these draft picks on, and that you feel like he can get back to where he was before?
Yeah, I think confidence for me comes from seeing it, and I've seen him do it. Mary Kay, I saw him do it in those games last season. I know it wasn't perfect. I certainly wasn't perfect. We weren't perfect around him. And as we all know, it's not a one-man show. It's a team game. And we didn't have as much team success as we would have liked late in the season there. But I've seen it from Deshaun in games. I've seen it from practice. I've seen it in his career. So that's why I'm confident. It's ones that you want to run.
There seems to be a concern and fear among fans and some media that with the emphasis on passing, Nick Chubb's role, not reduced, but his rush attempts, his touches. Can you say whether that is true?
No, I mean, Nick's a major part of our offense, so always will be. I mean, he was, I thought, very productive last season, had a good amount of attempts last season. You're always trying to get the best version of Nick, so that's always part of our plan is to make sure that he's fresh for a 17-game season plus. But Nick will always be a big part of our offense.
And on third down, we see more Jerome Ford this year?
Yeah, that's something we're going to have to work through and see who earns that role, so to speak. But that's definitely an area that we need to look at, and Jerome is a candidate for that, and we'll see how it goes through the spring.
Kevin, what's the goal nowadays for points per game to compete and get to the Super Bowl?
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about as a league how close these games are. The margin of victory, I think, was the closest it's been in a long, long time. So I don't know what the number is. You've heard 24 kind of thrown around in that vein, 24, 25, 26. But obviously it's whatever it takes in that given week. But I do think the way the rules are written, the way some of these offenses are, I do think it's probably fair to say you're in that 24-plus range.
We got to wrap here.
AB was saying yesterday that you kind of talked to Robert Saleh a little bit about Elijah Moore. So can you just, I mean, you got a good scouting report and you feel
I feel very comfortable. Again, Elijah's somebody we did a lot of work on coming out. We were able to talk to a bunch of different people. I feel very comfortable with the person we're getting. I was able to spend time with him last week, sit down and talk about all sorts of things, and I'm thrilled about adding him to the group.
All right, that's Browns head coach Kevin Stefanski from the owners' meetings down in Arizona. And Jim, obviously a lot of that talk about Elijah Moore. Mm-hmm. We did the coaches event last week. Which
right. He had just been traded that day.
Yeah. And it was pretty clear that he was somebody that the people in this building really liked. Coming out, they looked at him last year at the deadline, and then this year they got him.
Yeah, they get him, and they on the other side of that, I can remember Kevin saying, boy, was he excited about the trade, the player. Elijah Moore was excited. I mean, he was ecstatic over the phone when they first made contact with him. He wanted to get out of there. There's no doubt about it. He had burned a few bridges there, but and it was time to relocate, and it's a good situation. New team, fresh new start, and I think he likes what he has here. Definitely a quarterback. That was a main issue for him with the Jets. Zach Wilson, Mike White, those people, mostly Zach Wilson, and how ineffective he was. I can't remember the day we played them because I try and put that game out therapeutically out of my mind.
That's
but
right.
What did he do much in that game, the home opener that day?
I think he caught a couple of passes. That was with Flacco, but nothing.
Yeah.
He was disgruntled pretty early on. He ended his rookie season. The final 6 games of his rookie season is when he played really, really well. I think he had 5 touchdowns or 4 or 5 touchdowns in those final 6 games. He had a 100-yard game. He had really that's where they thought he had turned the corner and that he was going to be. When we had Rich Cimini on, he said this is a guy that was one of our core, supposed to be one of the core Jets coming out of that end of that rookie season. Let's see, week 2, 3 for 41 on 5 targets.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, but he finished that, going back to that rookie year, his final 6 games, 6 for 67, 7 for 84 and 2, 3 for 44 and a touchdown, 8 for 141 and a touchdown, 4 for 46, 6 for 77 and a touchdown. So they kind of thought that's what he would build on, and really this past year he only got over 60 yards in 1 game and was disgruntled after kind of the way things were going there, especially once Zach Wilson returned to the starting lineup. But a guy with a lot of talent and an opportunity. He knows Deshaun Watson. He knows Amari Cooper from the same area, part of Florida. So hopefully, we can get that guy that we saw at the end of his rookie year there from St. Thomas Aquinas in Florida.
That's a powerhouse program.
Quite.
Yeah, that's the powerhouse program. The other thing is, and especially now with the combination of him coming here, and he's played, and then you get Goodwin, who's played a lot and for a number of teams, and he's 32 years old. You have guys that kind of know the game a little bit. Now, Goodwin obviously knows it very well. And, Elijah Moore was a big part, planned to be a big part for the Jets. And he's played the game, and he brings a lot of credentials into it. He's blessed with great speed. I just felt that it's commendable for the Browns, but I think it hurt the Browns a lot, that there were a lot of projects at wide receiver. I mean, there was Cooper. Donovan Peoples-Jones is a quick climber, and I think, but not totally finished off yet. But I think he's getting closer and closer, and I think at the end of the year he was right there.
Yeah.
But after that, there were a lot of projects: Schwartz project, Michael Woods project, David Bell, big time project. There were a lot of guys that that
not proven.
Not proven, and kind of learning the game. And they were in games that you needed to win. So I think just the fact that wide receiver room will now have speed, it will have experience, it will have Cooper, it will have Donovan Peoples-Jones, who is really graduating now to become a full credentialed go-to guy at wide receiver. You're just so much better now at that spot. You were really limited almost to whatever side of the field Cooper was on, because he became that much of a staple. And when you couldn't get the ball to him, Nathan, and there were times when teams would say, hey, listen, I don't care what these other guys do, but we're not going to let him get on a roll. They would struggle offensively in periods of those games until they could find a way to get him the ball.
Yeah, I mean, here's the crazy stat from last year. Amari Cooper had 9 touchdowns. The Browns had 19 passing touchdowns. Amari Cooper caught 9 of those. Donovan Peoples-Jones 3, so that's 12 of the 19. Njoku 4, so that's 16 of the 19. Nick Chubb caught 1. Kareem Hunt caught 1, which was week 1. And Harrison Bryant caught 1. That's it. No other receiver on the roster last year. The only other receiver who had even had a touchdown catch was Demetric Felton, who had 2 in his rookie year, but that was it.
Right.
None another receiver caught a touchdown last year.
Yeah, remember, Schwartz was a running play.
Schwartz ran it in from 35, 35 yards out. But you look at the rest of that receiving room, David Bell was number 3 with 214 yards. Nobody else even had 60 yards in our wide receiving room, and now you're going to add in a Goodwin, you're going to add in Elijah Moore. It's going to be very different. And our offense is going to be very different.
Yeah, I mean, I'm feeling we're going to throw the ball a lot more.
Yes.
And that is no admission of defeat with the running game. It is still very much there. There's no doubt about it. But I wanted to bring this up to you because I was thinking about this. I have noticed since post-playoffs, those 2 years that the Browns have not made
Yep.
the playoffs, that come the month of December in both seasons, the Nick Chubb runs became tougher to hit. There were a lot of 1 yards.
Yeah.
There were a lot of points in games where, the Browns would get into that position where it would say, all right, we're going to just run this thing out, and they couldn't do that for one reason or another. And I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was the offensive line or if it was just that they had become very predictable. People said, hey, listen, we're just going to clog the box up on them and really throw a lot of people at Nick Chubb. But if you remember the playoff year when they made the playoffs and they were on the run at the end of the year, he ran the game out a number of times.
Yeah.
He literally ran it out against Houston. Remember, he ran out of bounds, right?
It's beautiful.
Yeah, it was a beautiful play. He ran it out with the stiff arm against the Eagles.
Yep.
Those 3 games where they had the bad weather, the Raiders, Texans, Eagles, he was running the game out. When they needed that last drive to run the clock out against the Steelers and clinch the spot, he got them down, and Baker got the big run that got the first down. But remember, Chubb hit a couple of big runs to get them down there.
His first run was the first touchdown.
But we could not do that, in the last couple of years. And again, as you said, people adjust to you.
They adjust, and I think that part of when you are as dynamic as Nick Chubb is, you also get worn down a little bit as the season goes on, which is one of the reasons why I know everybody says we got to give him 20-plus carries every week. One of the reasons they don't is because they're trying to keep him fresh. So this is, to me, somewhat interesting. So Nick Chubb in September, this is for his career, 1,439 yards, 5.8 yards a carry, 17 touchdowns in September.
Right.
In October, and that was in 17 games, 16 games in October, 1,377 yards, 5.5 yards a carry, and 10 touchdowns. November, 16 games. By the way, 11-5, which is his best month of his career. 11-5 in 16 November games, 1,589 yards, so that's the most of any month, 5.1 yards a carry, 10 touchdowns. So the yards have gone consistently down each month. And then December, 21 games in December, he has 1,531 yards, 4.5 yards a carry, and 10 touchdowns. So 100 carries more than in October, same number of touchdowns, a full yard per carry less.
So I'm thinking immediately of a game a couple of years ago, a COVID game when we got pushed to the Monday game
Against
from
the
the
Raiders.
Saturday.
Nick Mullins.
And all we needed was the first down to win the game because Greedy had picked the pass off after they had hit Harrison Bryant with the go-ahead score on an amazing comeback, considering the state of the team. The coach isn't there. And they're in you're thinking, this is over. They're going to get the first down, and the Raiders will never get the ball back. And he got like 6 yards on first down, and they could not get the next 2 plays. They gave it to him 3 times, and they couldn't get it. And remember, had they hung on, they were very much alive. They were still in it, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Well, that would have made that game in Pittsburgh a lot more interesting.
Yeah, right.
No, that was that. You're right, and that was rough. And then the Raiders get the ball back, a couple of big passes, and Carlson hits a bomb into the dog pound, which was unbelievable.
Yep.
That was kind of the story of that season, though. And I do think, and you'd go back also in that same season, though, you go to the Thursday night game with Dearness Johnson when Chubb didn't play, when we needed to run the clock out, and we were able to do so.
Do that against Denver.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
And you just, I think it's hard to do. I think now we have so much more variance in who can actually carry the football to pick up a couple yards at the end of a drive with Deshaun and what they're going to be able to do. It'll be interesting to see. But I think that those stats, and I had no idea when I pulled up, you said that anecdotally, when I pulled up the splits, I had no idea what they were going to say. But it's clear from September and October to December, he loses about a yard per carry.
Yeah. And late stages in December, games are coming right down.
Of course.
It's a yard is everything. A yard keeps you out of the playoffs.
It's one play here or there.
Really is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
One missed tackle or one missed block in the case of slowing down the ground game. All right, when we come back, we're going to go around the league. A lot going on. Obviously, Lamar Jackson at the forefront of that. It's been the topic for a lot of people. Some are not interested in talking about it, like Bill Belichick. But the Lamar Jackson story, obviously, permeating through the National Football League. We'll talk about that when we come back on Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Ballybet, coming soon to Ohio. Right, welcome back to Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Bally Bet, coming soon to Ohio. Time now to go around the league. All right, Jim, I'm just going to say 2 words, Lamar Jackson.
Wow, what a day coming out of the owners' meetings and wherever he is, Lamar Jackson. And you talk about timing, John Harbaugh sitting down. You know, we heard Kevin Stefanski with our media. John Harbaugh is going to sit down. Suddenly, you couldn't get near his table, I understand, because the tweet from Lamar Jackson was timed right up against when he was going to meet with the media. And he
doesn't feel like an accident.
No, I don't think so. Yeah, unbelievable. You know, the thing now, Nathan, is it's gotten into a dangerous level because it's really become personal. And it's become personal because he doesn't have an agent.
Yeah,
and he's listening to it apparently himself, and he's doing it, or a family member, his mom has been mentioned in the past. But this was the problem that baseball entered into when arbitration came into Major League Baseball. And the hard part was players said you would go into the room and you would put what you think you were going to make, okay, as what the salary should be. He said, and then your team would sit, there would be a mediator in the middle, and your team would sit on the other side of the room, and they would put down a figure which was much less than the figure you put down. That's why you're there in the first place. And then they would take apart your game.
Yeah, tell you all the reasons why you're not worth any money.
You don't hit with runners in scoring position. Yeah. You went into a bad slump in July, and suddenly you feel terrible. So that's why baseball teams now really do everything they can to avoid arbitration. This now has become very personal. I mean, that was a goodbye message yesterday.
Absolutely.
When Baker wrote kind of the goodbye message here at about this time last year, wasn't it?
Well, it feels clear that he does not want to play there. It also feels like the Ravens are not just acquiescing to that. We heard Harbaugh talk about how he's going to be our quarterback. We heard Sashi Brown last night, the president of the Ravens and former GM here of the Browns, talk about how they are committed to getting it done and they feel like they will be able to work something out with Lamar. I think you're right. It feels deeply personal. I was talking with Gerard about this yesterday. I think that it can all be true that Lamar Jackson wants to be paid commensurate with what he thinks his worth is. And certainly, as Gerard pointed out, like he's got to make more than Danny Dimes. And I said, well, I would say on an apples-to-apples basis, you'd say yes, but the Ravens would probably say the Giants made a poor decision, and that should not necessarily calculate into our decision here. But I think that the Ravens really, really like Lamar Jackson, but I do think that there is a reasonable question, not only with the Ravens, but around the league, that is he somebody you can win a Super Bowl with? He has not been available in December 2 years in a row. His passing has not been as good the last 2 seasons as it was the seasons before. Is he going to be able to maintain what makes him so electric and dynamic, the running with the injury concern and the risk? This is a very different animal altogether than in terms of, if he was just a pure pocket passer, for example, or even if he had kind of shown from a build standpoint and a durability standpoint what Jalen Hurts showed last year. Mm-hmm. Like I think the Eagles would be much more comfortable with Jalen Hurts right now than Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson's been the MVP of the league.
I think so. The other thing is, when he was available, he's only won one postseason game.
Yep.
And his postseason losses have come at home. He's lost at home when they have gone in as a team that has home field advantage. I mean, he got beat by the Chargers one time in there.
That was the MVP year.
Yeah, I mean, didn't he get beat by Tennessee another time? He lost at home a couple of big playoff games. I think his only win actually was on the road.
And
it was at Tennessee.
And it was Tennessee.
Yeah. But and that's the other thing though, is that you measure, can you get through the postseason with him? Number one is, can you get to the postseason with him? Is he going to be healthy enough? And in the last 2 years, that's a big question mark because he hasn't been there. And then number two is, can he win in the postseason? And he has not shown an overriding ability to say, he gets us into a big game, we're going to be able to win. I mean, didn't he get hurt in the playoff game against Buffalo up in Buffalo? And they had to get him out. He got concussed in that game. So
four playoff games for Lamar Jackson. 1-3 is his record. 55.9% completion percentage, 900 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, and then listen to this, 19 sacks in those 4 games. Quarterback rating in the playoffs of 68.3. And so, yes, he is one of the most explosive, dynamic playmakers in the league. That is true, but he wants the guaranteed contract. It feels like a lot of people are not comfortable giving that to him, including the Ravens, at the level that he wants. I think the Ravens are fine saying, we'll give you, the 3 years. Didn't he say he was offered 3 years, $40 million, and he said that he had turned that down?
Right.
So now we'll see. Either he's going to play for 32 for them. Somebody's going to put together an offer sheet, but it feels like there's more every day. Everybody's just saying we're not going after Lamar Jackson.
Well, it sounded even last night there was a hint that maybe Indianapolis was interested.
Yep.
But then today, Jim Irsay kind of backed off that a little bit. I'm uncomfortable with fully guaranteed contract. I'm uncomfortable with what the compensation would probably have to be too. Okay, I mean you're talking about a hefty load there.
Yeah.
And so even the Colts, who seem to be, at least publicly, the only team that kind of said, yeah, I mean, maybe this would be workable. But you're right. I mean, everybody is kind of holding firm that they're staying back away from it, and he can't get an offer. I mean, obviously, he is putting that out there yesterday to really send out the message that, hey, listen, I asked these guys for a trade March 2nd, and probably inside NFL teams, they knew that.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, because, everybody knows what's going on. And nobody is, I think he's begging for an offer right now.
Well, right, and I think he's trying to put.
Don't you think Baltimore holds still a lot of the cards,
they
other
do.
than his feelings?
Right now,
technically
they can match anything
cards.
that's put out. They can have him for 1 year for 32, or he can sit out. I mean, that's his leverage right now. If he doesn't get an offer, and the Ravens can just match that, let somebody else set the market. But if he doesn't get an offer, and teams are hesitant to make an offer unless they know for sure that it won't be matched,
right?
Which is obviously that's a difficult thing to get there 100%. That his only leverage is to sit out a year, but that just feels like such a difficult proposition. And what are you going to make on the future contracts where you're going to get that $32 million back?
Well, here's the other thing too: sitting out the year, and I'm talking about quality of play. And what it does to you as far as, can you stay up with the game? Because the game changes and it gets – but take a look at our guy. Okay, now he sat out really almost 2 years.
2 years.
Okay?
Yep.
But still, I think if they sat in a room together, I think that Deshaun would say to him –
play.
Hey, you got to play. I'm telling you. I got back in there, and I went to minicamp, and I did everything. Got a lot of reps in training camp, OTAs, all those things. But, boy, when I went out there against Houston and Cincinnati the next week, Baltimore after that, whoa, this thing really took off on me. And I had played a lot before this.
And he had been the league's leader in completion percentage and passing yards. And for Lamar, that's not his calling card, right, is to be able – so you would imagine it would be even more of a challenge for him. Still only 26 years old. Listen, if I were him, and if I were the Falcons, it makes a lot of sense. You bring Lamar Jackson to the Falcons, you're the favorite to win that division. I'm surprised. And now today they were talking glowingly. Desmond Ritter's our starter. Yeah. We loved him. As soon as he was ready, he was the guy last year. It's going to be interesting to see how that all plays out there. But right now, it doesn't feel great. I think if you're Ravens fans are freaking out. And because if it's not Lamar Jackson, if he says, I'm done playing for the Ravens, period, the end, who's going to be their quarterback?
Anthony Brown and Huntley are the guys that are on their roster as of today.
That feels a little bit like a downgrade. I know Huntley went to the Pro Bowl and all last year, but it feels like a little bit. It just feels like a little bit of a downgrade there. Speaking of another franchise that not in turmoil by any means, but that the media there, better than anybody, not pleased with the recent state of affairs. Is Bill Belichick on the hot seat in New England if the Patriots don't make the playoffs? This is what Robert Kraft had to say. Look, I'd like him to break down Shula's record, but I'm not looking for any of our players to get great stats. We're about winning and doing whatever we can to win, and that's what our focus is now. And it's very important to me that we make the playoffs, and that's what I hope happens here next year.
Well, I listened to Robert Kraft, the entire body of his meeting with the media yesterday.
Yeah.
And a lot of it was about Bill Belichick and a little bit about Mac Jones, but most of it was about the disaster, and really Robert Kraft felt it was a disaster last year. Now, they were 8-9, okay?
Yep.
But he thought that the coaching staff and the makeup of the coaching staff, Joe Judge, Matt Patricia, being moved into these really new roles, and I underline new, okay?
Yep.
Over to the offensive side and handling a very young quarterback in Mac Jones just was a total disaster, and it was. I mean, it was awful.
Yep.
And it has probably impeded the progress of Mac Jones. But, Nathan, the other thing that the people back there have to realize is that they need to realize the dynasty is over.
Yes.
And they keep kind of hanging on to it. Now, that owner is saying, hey, I want to be in the playoffs. Now, we would love to be in the playoffs here, right? I mean, and we definitely know how difficult it is. It's not a given. We thought we were definitely going to be an annual participant after we made the playoffs in 2020. It's hard. I mean, for whatever reason, for a lot of reasons. But they are holding on to this thing that even without Tom Brady, okay, we are still the Patriots. We still have this thing, the Patriot way, and we can still win this thing because he is the greatest coach of all time. He is tough for them to take back there because he is so moody, and normally that mood is bad and dismissive, but yet they still think he's the genius that can go into the lab and come up with something even without Tom Brady and win a Super Bowl. And I think that they have to realize that he is the greatest coach of all time, but even he has to go with the cards that he's got in his hand, and I don't think they're good enough.
He can't play,
right? Yeah.
Not that you would want him to play, but it is an interesting thing because I think anybody who's being objective about it, assuming that Aaron Rodgers does end up becoming a New York Jet, would have to be projected to be last in that division, period.
Yeah. A division they owned.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the Jets are going to be dramatically better. The Bills are the Bills.
And the Dolphins
are on the rise. No doubt about it.
We don't know who's playing quarterback for them yet, but yeah.
Yeah.
It's a tough one, and it is funny, and I'm curious because you're plugged into it more, but it's like, okay, well, now we're going to bring Bill O'Brien back, and we're just going to kind of go through, and there's a group of guys that we're going to bring in, and now I do think Bill O'Brien will be very good for the offense. But it is kind of interesting how people go away, it doesn't work out, then they come back.
He gave short answers, one-word answers throughout the 25 minutes of his meeting with the media, hoping that the PR guy would come in and say, all right, that's enough.
It. Yeah.
Anyway, they said to him, what should the fans read in? What should they be looking forward to? How can they trust that this thing is going to turn around, that you still have it, basically? And he gave this answer of, well, all they have to do is look at the last 25 years. He's going into his 25th year with them. And, he's saying, hey, I've done it. I know how to do it. The other thing that was interesting is in the passing of the torch yesterday, who was next there? Robert Kraft kind of hinted that it would be Gerard Mayo, that he's really he was worried that they were going to lose Gerard Mayo. He was on our radar, right?
Yes,
as a candidate, a defensive coordinator.
Yep.
That they really had to work hard to keep him in the organization. And he said, there's no doubt in my mind he's going to be a head coach. Well, a lot of people took it that if you work that hard to keep him and to not lose him and to create some kind of a new title for him, although they haven't made that clear what that title is, that maybe he is the next guy when Belichick breaks the Shula record.
30 games to go.
Yeah, right.
McDaniels was the next guy.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Well, now he's in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
All right. Should the Packers demand at least one first-round pick for the Jets in the Aaron Rodgers paying trade? Absolutely, I think. It feels to me like the Packers have some leverage there.
I watched their general manager yesterday. It was an impeccable day of coverage from
it was great.
From Phoenix. It was great. I thought he was terrific about, hey, I tried to call him the entire offseason. I could never get through to him.
Never wanted to talk to him.
He never returned the call.
Yeah.
I couldn't get through to him. So
I think they're on some level happy to be done with the headache.
I definitely think so. He was, here I am. I have to watch the Pat McAfee show to find out what the quarterback is thinking. And the answer is, yeah, you do. Because that's the way it's gone with him.
Which is an outrageous thing.
They keep talking, and he thinks that they can get this done pretty quickly. What about the time element here?
So the question is, obviously, I'm guessing if you're the Packers, you want to get this done prior to this draft so that you can at least reap some of the benefits of making this deal for this season. Now, you could also say we want picks this year and one this year, one next year. But I do think the timing is the draft is probably the first real deadline for them to get it done.
And the Jets really do not want to give up that 13 pick.
No. Right. And I think there was one of the reasons I think that we were able to get such a good deal from the Jets on Elijah Moore is because supposedly they were asking for a third-round pick. We offered a second in exchange for their third, which nets out to being like really a fourth-round pick. Because I think that second-round pick is something that they're hoping to say, hey, we'll give you a couple twos,
right,
and let's get this done. The idea of getting another 2, I think, was very attractive to them, even though it wasn't just a pure 2. It was a 2 for a 3 and Elijah Moore for us. But I think that the draft is probably the first deadline where you're going to want to see that get done if you're the Jets and the Packers, really.
I thought it might get done this week. They're there. Get it done, get it over with. I mean, it's the craziest deal because it's basically done. Everybody's committed to it. I mean, even wide receivers have moves that they have made, the Jets have made for their roster are moves that he wanted made so that he could throw to these guys. They're now in place with the Jets.
Yeah.
He's not there yet. The Packers have kind of signed off on it that, yeah, he wants out and he wants to specifically go there. Let's just get it done.
Let's just get it done.
Get it done.
I agree with you. Speaking of getting it done, the Josh Harris Mitchell Rails Group, which now includes Magic Johnson, officially has submitted a fully financed bid that meets Dan Snyder's $6 billion asking price per source. I think there are a lot of people that will be happy when that deal is done.
And when it is done, please build a new stadium.
Please.
Oh,
yes. Oh, man.
That place is wretched.
We can't even see the ball in the air from the booth.
Yeah. You would start calling the play from the field, and then I'd have to go up to a television screen, which was above our eye level, to kind of call the rest of the play because you couldn't see the play. It was unbelievably bad.
That was
wretched.
Bizarre, which made the first half a little easier in that game, but it was sad for the second half. That was our best half. We would have liked to have a real nice view of that second half, which we didn't get. All right, it's a special Tuesday edition of the Mailbag. Tweet us your questions for the voice, Jim Donovan, and yours truly to @Browns_Daily. Use the hashtag AskCBD. Hour number 2, we got higher or lower, looking some at the way too early NFL win totals for the 2023 season. We've got some thoughts on some of the big offseason moves in the league. We've got the Mailbag and much, much more. It's Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Ballybet, coming soon to Ohio. Welcome back to Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Ballybet, coming soon to Ohio. Nathan Zagura, along with the voice of the Cleveland Browns, Jim Donovan, and we welcome in Gibby for the first time today. Gibby for a little higher or lower, also known as better or worse. Although I think in this case, higher or lower might actually work. Should the win total be higher or should it be lower? I like that.
Yes, the latest. Actually, I think these are the first official numbers out.
Okay.
Regarding win totals and over or unders. First and foremost, they have the Cleveland Browns. Now remember, 17 games. They have the Cleveland Browns at 8.5. I think we can all say that this is
it better
pretty
go
low
over.
number.
Yeah, I mean,
it better go over.
It's imperative. It's got to be higher,
or it's going to be problematic. I think that you definitely want to be over because over ensures a winning season, 9-8. But I don't know if 9-8 if that ensures you anything in the AFC this year.
No, I don't think so.
I think you got to win 10 games if you
I think
want to
10
be in the
would
postseason.
be. Yeah, 10's the magic number, and I'm comfortable with 10.
I am too.
I would be very comfortable with 10.
I'd set it at 9.5. That's probably where I would have set this. Just one, or at least 9.
Again, these are the way too early.
Sure.
Over-unders, in my opinion. I mean, we haven't even gotten to the draft yet and off-season workouts and all that fun stuff.
Sure.
If we take a look around the AFC North, higher or lower, the Baltimore Ravens at 8.5. Jim, what say you?
First of all, I think they should be taken off the board right now.
Yeah.
Because of what's going on.
Right.
There's a big if there, Gibby. I mean, I would say 8.5. If he doesn't play, that's too high, and it would be, I would say much lower. I would say that might be right on 8.5.
Yeah, it feels pretty good to me.
Probably right on.
What's odd about our division is you have the Bengals at 11.5, the clear favorites, and then everybody else is at 8.5.
8.5. Yeah.
And for the Steelers,
the Pukers are at 8.5.
I don't know. All we were supposed to do was put Kenny Pickett in 3rd and long in that last game, and we were going to win easily, and then we did, and we didn't win because we blew some coverages and whatnot. But
I have to tell you, I admire them. I really do. And they had a great run at the end of the year, but I don't know how they did it. I really don't. I think that they are beatable. I really do.
So do I.
And yet they find a specific way to win it. It might be, the week before they played us, they went in on that Sunday night game in Baltimore, and the way they pulled that thing out at the end of the game was absolutely amazing. And they know how to do that. So when they find a game that they need, hey, we're going to have to win this thing defensively, that's the way they win it.
Yeah, and Pickett was clutch down the stretch.
He was very
in a couple
clutch,
of those games.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It feels like on paper we have to be the second best team in this division. If not, we've done pretty well against the Bengals, to be honest. Last year we split with them. It's the first time we split with them since Joe Burrow's been there.
Same with the Ravens here recently.
What?
Same with the Ravens.
Yeah.
It's the Pukers.
We've got to be better than the Steelers, and we've got to be better than the Ravens this year.
You know what?
We could have
easily won that game in Baltimore. The Cooper pass interference
was ridiculous
down there. The chaos at the end there.
Yeah.
With the field goal, and the fake penalty or whatever it was. That was a mess at the end of the game.
Yes,
and then that's what happens over there.
Yeah.
And it happens at the other place too in Pittsburgh. These crazy things happen when it looks like you have a pathway to win, and it slips away, and you go, how the heck did that happen? And how did it happen so quickly? The last game of the year, 7-0, and really kind of in control at the end of the first half with about 1:10 left.
Yes.
And by halftime, we're losing. And then the next thing you know, they've put 20 unanswered on the board when we went into the second half. So really,
and you're like, what just happened?
You have to learn how to win in those places.
I think that's right. And the one place that we do feel comfortable, even though we lost there last year, it feels like it has been in recent years, is in Cincinnati. That has not been a daunting place for us to play.
But again, now, Nathan, remember that game, opening drive for the Browns, they go down. They bring Brissett in on a 4th down and 1 at the 25, and he throws.
Try to throw a touchdown.
To Peoples-Jones in the corner.
Right
they didn't
corner.
get it. And you just take a look at that. You take a look at that Atlanta game when they went down on that opening drive and they didn't get it in. And you're chasing those points then for the rest of the day. So we got to learn how to win those things on the road.
Yes, we got to learn how to win them. We got to learn.
Then
how
that
to close
8.5
them.
will be way up.
We'll sky right on over that 8.5. All right, so that's a look at the AFC North again. It's the Bengals 11.5 clear division favorite, and one of the favorites in the AFC. The Chiefs are also at 11.5.
Yeah,
those are the top two teams.
The 11.5s. There are 3 teams at 11.5. The Bengals, the Chiefs, and the 49ers.
And
with
we don't even
Brock
play
Purdy.
quarterback for them, which is incredible. That just speaks to the talent on that roster, and then the belief, obviously, in Kyle as a coach to make whoever is playing quarterback
Who would you
look
think?
good.
Who would you think will end up as a quarterback?
I think Darnold's probably going to end up starting.
Wow.
That's kind of what Kyle said today. He kind of hinted that Darnold could be the guy that ends up starting the season for them because they don't think Brock Purdy will be ready yet.
Whew.
I know.
Wow. How about that?
They come here this year, right?
The Niners?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, God. That would be great.
It'll be.
Oh, that will be great.
That'll be interesting, and it makes you wonder if that is the case, right? And let's just say that Lance is healthy and they start Sam Darnold over him. You feel like that was. They will be fortunate to still be as good as they have been, despite botching a major move for a quarterback.
And botching the whole thing.
The whole thing.
The whole thing. Absolutely.
Yeah. And the picks they gave up.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
all of it.
Yeah.
So 11.5 is the highest win total.
Yep.
The lowest goes to 2 teams, the Texans at 5.5 and the Arizona Cardinals at 5.5.
Jonathan Gannon.
Yeah, that Cardinals
Good luck
team.
with
I
that
think
Kyler
is-
Murray thing.
They're rough. I think the Texans could actually get good quickly because of the division that they're in and the fact that they've got a lot of assets. I think Tennessee's on the decline. The Colts, if they don't have a quarterback, or who knows what they are. But the Jags are pretty good. I do like the Jags.
I just think it's interesting. 5.5, but yet the entire NFC South, which frankly isn't great. I mean, the Falcons are at 7.5. The Panthers are at 7.5. They have the Bears at 7.5.
I will say this about the Falcons. I like their coach.
Yeah.
I think,
So does our coach.
He does, yeah. He is, so does Belichick. Really likes him. He's very committed to his way, right?
Yes.
And he's not going to deviate a great deal from it, and he stays with it. I mean, he did it in Tennessee when he became the offensive coordinator, and everyone kept saying, who the heck is this guy that they gave the offensive coordinator job?
Yeah.
And he did a great job there, and then I think he's done a pretty good job in Atlanta. I mean, they played very hard against us. that day.
Yeah.
I mean,
They
they
ran
just
the ball
ran it right at us.
Right at us.
Merciless.
And I think he handled the situation, when Mariota says, okay, I'm not starting, I'm leaving. It didn't seem to cause that much of a ripple. They seemed to handle that well. They got some nice production out of their young players. Drake London and Algier, the running back, had a very nice season for them.
He did.
I think, I like what he's done. That, to me, though, again, feels like, and maybe they just really like Desmond Ridder, but that feels like you bring Lamar Jackson, drop him out on the Atlanta Falcons. That's a team that's the favorite in that division.
In the division. Absolutely. Yeah. And, remember, they were in the Deshaun Watson talks, right?
Of course.
The Falcons, they were right there.
So they obviously have been interested. That was prior to getting Ridder, obviously, but I don't know that anybody could say for sure they saw something in Ridder that would make them say we don't need to do anything at that position.
Absolutely.
We're set.
Yeah, right.
Some of the other, I guess, head scratchers.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Miami at 9.5.
I don't know if Tua plays. I mean, they'll do that. Although it's just a good division. The Bills are 10.5. They're 9.5. The Jets are 9.5.
New England's
7.5, which is the bottom of the division. So you got 3 teams there that they think are going to win double-digit games or have the potential to win double-digit games in that division, which again goes back to how difficult it's going to be in the AFC to make the playoffs.
Right. Yeah. I think that I really take a look at that and take a look at that division, and to me, it is startling. It's just visually startling to see New England, down at the bottom of the heap. It really is. It's just been it's a division they dominated for decades.
Yeah.
For
Jim,
decades.
what do you make of Mac Jones?
I think there were a couple of things. Was he in a bad situation last year? That thing was a mess, coaching-wise. I liked him the year before. I thought he played very well for them. I think what troubled them, Jason, was the way he acted. He acted out.
Yeah.
On the field, on the bench, and sometimes people can say, well, that's a good fire that you want, but he seemed kind of whiny, and I don't think that sat well with the head coach. who said at the end of the year in a classic Belichick quote, "Yeah, I think he might be able to play in this league." And it wasn't by far not a ringing endorsement to what they were going to do with him.
Well, I mean, and we've heard even now from Devin McCourty, who said that the locker room was divided over Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi.
Bailey Zappi, right? Yeah.
The other interesting number here, and it's a flat number. There's no 0.5.
The Lions.
The Detroit Lions.
I like the Lions. So they're the favorite in that division at 9. The Bears are at 7.5. The Packers are at 7.5, and the Vikings are at 8.5. So the Lions are the favorite, and the over juice is minus 150, which that is the highest juice on any team to bet their over. The next closest, you got the Ravens over 8.5. It's a minus 140. The Browns over 8.5 is minus 140, and the Jags over 9.5 is minus 140.
Do you ever think, though, that the Lions could fall into that class that we kind of fell into, where like the year we had won Mayfield's rookie year, and we get the 7 wins where we were like 7, 8, and 1 that year. And then everyone got all excited. We got the OBJ trade, and everyone's going, wow, they're going to do it. And then, and could the Lions fall into that where expectations are way above what the actual talent on the field is?
I think they're pretty talented, though, on offense, especially because they're going to have Jameson
Williams. They had
Williams.
a very fun offense.
They have a fun offense. The interesting thing is, and the difference I would say between that and our situation is that our division was still really good.
Mm-hmm.
That division is, I think, bad.
Yeah. You even think Minnesota's bad?
Obviously, they're trying to address their defense, but, it feels like, Thielen's gone. Dalvin Cook is, not ascending probably as much as he is.
Right. They have the great receiver. They have the great receiver.
Jefferson, who's awesome.
Right.
The Lions giving them T.J. Hawkinson is still one of the craziest things that I think happened in last season under the radar. You drop T.J. Hawkinson back on the Lions, and you're saying, man, this team is phenomenal.
Yeah.
So,
especially inside your division.
Right. For no reason. It just didn't even make any sense.
Yeah. The other thing, too, they lived a very charmed existence last year. They won a lot. They won, how many games did they win, like at the gun?
Right at the end.
And I'm not just talking about the Buffalo game, but there were a lot of other games that they won. They were doing it week in and week out where they were winning these games on, was it Greg Joseph? Was he the kicker?
For the Vikings?
Yeah, was he with them?
Yep.
I mean, he was winning games for them on last-second field goals, it seemed,
all
weekly.
Season.
Yeah, all season long. And that's why I thought even in the playoff game against the Giants, they were going to do it again. And then it finally struck midnight on them.
Their record in one-score games was so out of whack with what a normal record would be that there were a lot of people who didn't have a lot of belief in them, even though they went in the playoffs. So there were their wins. So they beat Green Bay week 1 23-7. They lose to the Eagles 24-7. And they beat the Lions 28-24, the Saints 28-25, Bears 29-22, Dolphins 24-16 with no Tua. 34-26, 20-17. They beat the Bills in overtime in that great game, 33-30. Then got smoked the next week, 40-3 by the Cowboys. Beat the Patriots 33-26, Jets 27-22. Lose to the Lions 34-23. Beat the Colts by 3 in overtime.
That was that incredible comeback, right?
Yep. The biggest, I think, right? 39-36. They beat the Giants 27-24. Lose to the Packers 41-17. Beat the Bears and then lost to the Giants in the playoffs 31-24. But yeah, they had a lot of games that were decided by 3 or 4, and Greg Joseph was there. I want to remember when they played the Saints in London. That was a game. That was one of those field goal games where Joseph had missed one and then he made one. That was week 4. So I'm trying to. Where were we? Week 4. Atlanta is when we were in Atlanta.
Yeah.
And that game was happening right kind of prior to the start of that game.
Not a great game,
Not our favorite.
Yeah.
Not our favorite.
Although I will tell you this, I was totally convinced when Nick Chubb hit the run of like 28 yards to give them the lead in the game. I said, okay, here we go. We're going to wiggle out of this thing, and we're going to get a nasty road win, but we're going to get out of here.
Yeah.
And what would we have been? We would have been 3-1. Yeah.
With the only loss being
the devastating game against the Jets.
Yes.
That was a crippler.
That was a crippler. And I think you always have to wonder the impact that Jets game had on this team's ability in those
late
moments,
stages.
To deliver what they needed to do. All right, when we come back, we're going to get Jim's thoughts on the following offseason moves in the league, some of the biggest names moving around. We'll get that. Plus, we got the mailbag. Get us your questions. Use the hashtag AskCBD. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Ballybet, coming soon to Ohio. There's a new way to cheer on your Cleveland Browns with the help of your favorite four-legged companion, Barking Backers. Presented by Milk-Bone is the Browns' newest club for pet parents worldwide. Sign up today at barkingbackers.com. Barking Backers, the fan club for dogs. Nathan Segura alongside the voice of the Cleveland Browns, Jim Donovan. And Jim, we're going to talk about some of the big offseason moves in the league and certainly on the coaching circuit. None bigger than Sean Payton to the Broncos with Russell Wilson now, and that's a team in a loaded division again, but you feel like Sean Payton probably the biggest hire that anybody could make out there, and they got him in Denver.
They did. Yeah, they did. And I was watching him because I didn't see him do the TV a lot because we were busy, but I did see him in the postseason.
Yep.
And I thought he was really good. I thought that group that he was with the secondary Fox
He was with
group.
like 1,000 people sometimes.
Yeah, right. Yeah, the place was loaded. You're absolutely right. I thought he was terrific, and I thought at one point he might stay for another year and maybe wait for the Cowboy situation,
right.
yeah.
Yep.
But, boy, terrific guy. Obviously, it's always interesting when these guys take a year off and then how they come back and regenerate themselves. That will be interesting to see. I mean, he's no holds barred.
No, and it sounds like he's kind of come in and said all the shenanigans that went on last year with Russell Wilson,
Boy,
those shenanigans will not be tolerated.
Yeah. Offices, personal offices, personal coaches, things like that. Well, that's come to an end.
Yeah, so that's it. Enough of that.
Yeah.
All right. The Bears ended up with the number 1 pick because of the unbelievable finish to the Colts and the Texans game.
We were watching all of the combinations over in Pittsburgh the last day.
Yeah.
More so, Nathan and I, for the Steelers, because remember they needed Buffalo to beat New England. They needed Miami to lose to the Jets. So we were watching that game, and then you said there were like 6 seconds left, and Houston just blew the number 1 pick.
Scored and got a 2-point conversion.
Lovie Smith. And he took them out of the number 1 pick. That was amazing.
Former Bear, let's just saying.
Right.
And the Bears get the number 1 pick, and they have decided they're going with Justin Fields. They trade with the Carolina Panthers back to number 9. They got DJ Moore. They got a ton of picks. It felt to me like a home run for the Bears. What did you think of that? And to see that it was done so early ahead of it with Carolina going in and out, it looks like they're going to take C.J. Stroud.
Yeah. Here's the other thing. I think, Nathan, that I think there were 2 times during the preseason, and it involves us, where teams favorably got more comfortable with their quarterbacks. And I think Fields was one of them when the Bears came in, because I remember talking to Tom Thayer and Jeff Joniak, who did their games, and they said, well, they love him, but I don't know. So tonight's kind of a big night. Remember, he was great. He was phenomenal in the first half of that game. And the same was true in that Sunday afternoon game when the Eagles came here, and Hurts actually played in that game, and, he played well. And I know that they were a little bit going into that season.
That's a question when they were here for camp. They're like,
is he the real deal?
Good?
Yeah, is he good? I mean, is he good?
Quite, turns out.
Yeah, I mean, you mean Gardner Minshew had fans in Philadelphia. But, yeah, I think that Chicago did a good job.
Yeah, that was a big
trade.
It
will be interesting, Fields' durability, the way he plays. Will he be able to hold up?
He's got to improve as a passer. And one of the questions was, did he have enough weapons? And so they say, all right, we get DJ Moore. They are in a position, if they want, to take Jackson Smith and Jigba and say, okay, now we've got plenty of weapons for you.
Right.
Let's go out there and let's execute on those weapons. One of the big moves in the AFC, I thought, was Orlando Brown leaving the Chiefs and going to the Bengals.
Yeah, and what's happened there. It's funny. I think that we felt that Cincinnati really had straightened out their offensive line problems. But at the end of the year and in the playoffs, they were hurt, weren't they?
They were banged up.
They were banged up, and they had trouble, especially against Kansas City in that playoff game, in the AFC Championship game, protecting him once again. And they go out and they get Orlando Brown, who leaves Kansas City and comes over there. He's been kind of a bit of a mercenary, hasn't he? Kind of floating around with other teams. He knows where to go. He knows he plays the position of need.
He does it.
When you have a big-time quarterback, right?
And he can protect that quarterback, and he's won a Super Bowl now, and it's kind of one of those, you would say, fairly amazing things that he's been able to your point, go from there, play in the AFC Championship game both years, both against the Bengals, 1-1, and now it's kind of amazing that it's been the Bengals and the Chiefs back-to-back seasons. And
it
for
really
the Chiefs,
is.
5 straight AFC Championships appearances in the championship game.
Absolutely. And some of and think about it. Think of a couple of the losses. I mean, really, that
end of the Patriots.
The Patriots game.
Yeah. Wasn't it Gronk? Wasn't it a big pass to Gronk?
Yeah, but remember they thought they had won the game and they were offside. Somebody had jumped offside, and they had the penalty. They thought they had won the game. Then they end up losing that one. The Bengal game at halftime looks like they've got that thing wrapped up. It's a blowout. I remember saying, poor Jim Nantz and Tony Romo. You get ready for a big game, and this thing's out of whack. And it was a great game, yeah. So they could have been in more.
They could have been. And, you were talking about Burrow this year into the postseason, and that was really what got them, and that's what cost them. Chris Jones basically wrecked that game in their ability to get after him and get to Burrow. In the 3 playoff games this year, he was sacked 10 times, but of those, I think 8 of them came in those final 2 games. So get Orlando Brown. That's going to shore some things up for you.
What about the kid that wants out now? Jonah Williams?
I mean, they obviously felt like they needed to get better at the position.
Yeah.
He'd struggled.
Well, he had struggled coming in because he got hurt right away, didn't he, when he came into them?
Yeah, and he'd struggled. And he'd screwed up. He idolized Joe Thomas, wore 73, and it just hasn't worked out. Myles Garrett has done a very good job against Jonah Williams. So maybe he wants out. He wants away from Myles, and for that, I certainly would not blame him at all. The quarterback moves. Is Aaron Rodgers, the fact that he's going to be a Jet, did that surprise you? Is that somewhere that you thought he was going to end up?
No, I really didn't. I actually thought he was going to retire. I thought
before the darkness, so did he.
Yeah, supposedly. I really did. I thought Packers, and I definitely felt when he walked off that field at Lambeau against the Lions, it looked as though, remember the guy wanted his jersey?
Yeah, and he wouldn't give it to him.
He wouldn't give it to him.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to hold on to this one, he said. Anyway, I thought he was walking off to the sunset, not to the Jets.
Yeah.
But it does reek of when Favre,
of course,
went to the Jets. And when the deal was made, Nathan, the Browns were playing the Jets in a preseason game, and Favre, they flew him in because the deal was consummated. They're getting ready to play, and he held his press conference, his first press conference as a Jet in the bowels of First Energy Stadium. As they got set to play the Browns that night, the game got delayed because of thunderstorms, and we're saying, well, what are we going to do? And then they said, well, why don't we have a microphone down there? Let's just plug into the press conference. What press conference? Brett Favre is holding his opening press conference in First Energy Stadium. It might have still been called Cleveland Browns Stadium at the time, and it was his introductory as the Jets quarterback.
Wow.
But this kind of reeks that.
Yeah, it most certainly does. It's just surprising to me, kind of based on what we talked about, why anybody would want to come to the AFC. Now, I know Aaron Rodgers isn't afraid of competition. Obviously, he still thinks he's one of the best quarterbacks. He likes it. But if he's in the NFC, he's the best quarterback in the NFC.
Yes.
Hurts would be in the conversation, but in the AFC,
Stafford, you don't know what.
They're saying that he's without limitations now, so that'll be good for him. But it's just in the AFC, it's just tough. It's tough. I mean, you think about Herbert, Burrow, Mahomes, Allen, Trevor Lawrence, Rodgers, Deshaun Watson, Russell Wilson, Lamar if he's here. The way that Tua was playing, too. I mean, that's 10.
Unbelievable. Yeah, that's amazing.
And at least it's 8. I mean, it's at least 8 quarterbacks. And guess what? There are only 7 playoff spots.
Yeah.
And you have 8 quarterbacks who are legit as it gets. Speaking of quarterbacks, former Patriot, former 49er, all he does is win, really, but doesn't seem to get much respect. Jimmy Garoppolo, he is now in Las Vegas.
Josh McDaniels always loved him, though, wasn't it? I mean that he really loved him a great deal. So, we'll see what happens. Can he remain healthy? It was amazing how they just came apart. The Raiders. Everyone thought really last year, once Josh McDaniels got there and they got the Devontae Adams deal done, that they were going to be at the top of the heap in the AFC, that they would give the Chiefs or anybody else a real battle.
Sure.
They would give the Bengals a real battle. I mean, because they had played the Bengals in the playoffs the year before, right down to the final gun in that game at Paul Brown Stadium. But boy, it really came apart. I mean, the Derek Carr thing came apart. Everything came apart, and they lost some. I mean, they won a goofy game against the Patriots, but they lost a lot of goofy games.
Yeah, and now they got Jacoby Myers there. Darren Waller gone, though.
Right.
They made some interesting moves. And then
you
mentioned
did.
Derek Carr. He goes to the Saints. They've got to be the favorites, I think, in the NFC South. Good defense. You got Carr. You got Olave. We don't know what you have in Michael Thomas, but he'll be back supposedly. So interesting there.
Yeah, they were a tough team, no doubt. They were very tough. On Christmas Eve, I give them a lot of credit
for
the way they handled that, the way they played in that game to stay alive.
Taysom Hill.
Whew. Wow.
Just a weapon in that environment, a real weapon.
Well, the other thing was, I mean, there was no disguise to what was going to happen. He just lined up in the shotgun, and I'm not going to throw it. I'm going to run it. I'm going to run it right at
11
you.
on 11.
Yeah, 11 on 11.
It's true, 11 on 11 in that case because he could run it. He could hand it out. He could go hand it off and go block somebody. The guy was a monster. All right, when we come back, we're going to get into the mailbags. Your chance to get questions to Jim Donovan, the voice of the Cleveland Browns. That's all coming up next here. Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Ballybet, coming soon to Ohio. Welcome back to Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Ballybet. Coming soon to Ohio, Nathan Zagura and the voice of the Browns, Jim Donovan, here at the Cross Country Mortgage Campus in Berea. Bringing in Gibbe again. It's time now for the Browns mailbag, presented by Vivid Seats, an official fan experience partner of the Cleveland Browns. Tweet us your questions using the hashtag AskCBD.
First and foremost, guys, some news coming out of the owners' meetings from the competition committee. Literally 9 seconds ago. From Tom Pelissero, the Rams' proposal on roughing the passer and replay was not approved.
They just got to get it right. They just have the guy upstairs look at it and be like, you know what, that wasn't roughing, pick up the flag. And just do it quickly.
Yeah.
Just do it quickly.
I emphasize quickly.
They have all the technology.
NFL owners tabled the Eagles' proposal to create a 4th and 20 alternative to the onside kick, I'm told. Not voted down, further discussion needed. So that would be on 4th down, you could go for it going on a 4th and 20 play, I believe, from the opponent's 25-yard line or 15-yard line. Am I correct on that? I believe.
That's what it would have been, right? You would have got it. They would have got it back at the 20.
And they 20 yards.
I think it'd be fun. Onside kicks. I got trauma from onside kicks. I think if a 20-yard play, I think it'd be fun to watch.
Those have become brutal to watch.
Oh my goodness. I do think there's a higher percentage of a team picking up 20 yards than recovering an onside kick.
Yeah. Well, I think so too.
Significantly.
Yeah, right.
NFL owners approved the proposal to allow players to wear number 0.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just a few.
I think these number things look good.
I agree.
You know, I really do. Like when Anthony Walker wore 4 and then went to 5. Yeah. You know, I was pretty cool with that. It looked pretty good. And whatever the gift was that he got, I remember that day when Deshaun lateraled him a nice box.
Oh yeah.
Remember that?
Oh yeah. We were all like, "What's in the box?" He's like,
"Don't drop it."
You're gonna see.
Don't drop it.
You can tweet at the show at Browns_Daily using the hashtag AskCBD. Kyle Benner, Jim, what's your Dunkin' order?
Oh, just a really pretty bland. Just a regular with cream. Yeah, just a coffee with cream.
It's that simple, folks.
It really is. Yeah.
It rarely doesn't have it.
I know.
That's easier than what I have to do for my kids when I go to Starbucks. It's like 38 different things.
Those are how do they do that? I don't understand. First of all, it's like calling a John Gruden play.
Yes,
in the huddle. Holy God, it's a whole different language.
My favorite is a lot of times it'll start with iced but end with no ice, and I'm like,
whoa,
huh?
A venti mango dragon fruit. That's what kids want to order. You got to text that to me because there's no way I'm remembering this.
No way.
My son likes, I think, a grande iced chai tea latte, no ice. And then sometimes they'll ask for a certain foam or cream. And I'm like, wow. What are we doing here?
Yeah.
It's too much.
Jersey Dog, who will benefit more from the wide receiver additions, David Njoku or Nick Chubb?
Boy. That's interesting.
Hopefully all of us, everybody.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll all benefit.
I would say that, I would definitely say that because I think that they're going to throw a little bit more, obviously, that it will open some things up for Chubb.
I agree.
You know, I think that might open it up. I think maybe they just really became, predictable that everyone said they love to run it, that's the guy they love to run. They didn't fear the throw a great deal, not because of who was throwing it, but who he was throwing it to.
No,
I think it could really open things up for Chubb.
Chubb was one of the best running backs in the league against lighter boxes and one of the best running backs in the league out of 11 personnel, which is 3 wide receivers, 1 tight end. So I think that's going to be more of our base offense this year. So you're not going to have the days of where he's lining up there and they're stacking the line and all of that. He's going to have room to run, and then gets you to the second level. And when you get Nick Chubb to the second level, he's very dangerous.
Yep.
Philip Rogers tweets at the show, Zagura, demerit. We all know the voice. The opening question is always, what are we doing on the Ponderosa currently?
That's Bo's thing,
as per Bo Bishop. So, Jim, fill us in. What's going on?
I knew we would get it here. I knew our fans would come
It was, as I always say to Bo, thanks very much for asking and caring. Today was a beautiful day. Yesterday was a tricky day. Cold rain is awful. For everybody, but very, very bad for the horses. They hate it. And when you have to keep blanketing them and re-blanketing them, it's a chore. So today was perfect, and they were a very happy lot going out. And as I was scurrying to get ready to come in here, it was a real chore to get them back in. Hey, come on in. Yeah, they didn't want to come in, and I'm going, hey, and the pastures are a little bit muddy right now, so I was looking like I had played at the old stadium.
I was saying, unfortunately, I think there's a little more rain coming. It feels like it's almost
it's every other day.
Oh, it's awful. Yeah.
Not great.
No, it's not great. It isn't great.
Ohio resident at CLE Browns 71. Jim, what in your opinion was the wildest Browns game you've called during your tenure as the voice?
The wildest Browns game that I've called.
I know the answer is from a bad game, but
yeah,
I called that one too.
Yeah. There was a game early on. I think it was Tim Couch down in Tennessee, and they were losing, and there was a big debate whether or not they should have played Tim Couch. He had an injury. Kelly Holcomb had played well, but they put Couch back in. And he went in, and they were getting clobbered early, and he brought them back at the end of the game, and Phil Dawson had an amazing onside kick to get them the ball back, where he bounced the ball way up in the air, and Dennis Northcutt, he caught this one.
Well, I was going to say he didn't catch the one I needed.
No, he didn't catch the one in Pittsburgh.
I had an orange 86 jersey.
But he caught this one, and they got the ball back. They tied it, and they won it down in Tennessee, and it kind of got them going. That's the year they made the playoffs. So that was the wildest. Another one, though, that opening day when Dwayne Rudd threw his helmet.
Oh, my God.
Oh, my God.
But, I mean, there was...
I was there.
Were you there?
I was there. I was in the crowd.
That was an incredible game because they went back and forth at each other. Unbelievable. Morton Anderson.
Yep.
Yeah. Who was the offensive lineman that picked up the ball and was running with it before they identified that Dwayne Rudd had thrown?
I feel like you told me this before. I don't remember. Who was it?
Big John Tate.
Big John Tate.
He should have been in WrestleMania coming up.
Yeah, absolutely. I just remember being, and when he threw the helmet, and everybody thought he had won, and then all of a sudden it was like a flag, and you're like, wait, what? Like, come on. There's got to be some discretion. It was over. Who cares if he threw his helmet?
Yeah.
So what?
Yeah. But it was a fantastic game. Terrible loss, but a fantastic game. I mean, the Browns had like a couple of 10-point leads.
Yeah.
And Kansas City would just come back. That was with Dick Vermeil as their coach. Oh, boy, that was unbelievable. So those are two pretty good examples. A win and a loss.
I remember that game. I was in town for a wedding. I watched the Chiefs game with my father before I flew home. I was living in Illinois, and I was on a plane with the Chiefs backers of Kansas City and the head official who made the call, and I walked on the plane wearing my Courtney Brown jersey. Things got a little awkward.
Absolutely.
That was 2002.
What was the final score?
40-39.
Yeah, it was
40 to 39. Fourth quarter featured 35 points.
Absolutely.
The last 6 in the final 29 seconds decided the game. Cleveland trailed 37-36 with 3 minutes to play, drove into position for a 41-yard field goal. Dawson made it with 29 seconds. Now trailing 39-37, the Chiefs, led by quarterback Trent Green and Priest Holmes, Priest Holmes is good, had one last play with 4 seconds remaining at their own 47.
Right.
While scrambling, he was brought down by linebacker Dwayne Rudd at the 42. While struggling to stay upright, Green pitched the ball back to his offensive lineman John Tate, who took off as time expired. He rumbled 28 yards to the Browns' 25, but the celebration began on the sideline. The Browns were winners, or so they thought. Lost in the play was Rudd back inside the 50 after grabbing onto Green's leg. Thought he got a sack and the play was dead. Jumped up and threw his helmet in celebration. One problem, the play was continuing. Player throwing his helmet during a live play, unsportsmanlike conduct. With no time on the clock, game can't end on a defensive penalty. Morton Anderson got to kick it. He was 42 at the time. He made it.
You know how many times I've seen a player throw a helmet in celebration at the end of a game?
Yeah.
Since then, like I actually find myself watching it.
Yeah.
Dan Deerdorf was on the call for CBS that day, and he said, quote, "This is a disbelieving Cleveland Browns stadium crowd right now." I'd say there was a little bit more than that.
It was the home opener, I think.
It was the home opener. Yes, September 8th.
Right, yeah.
We've had some doozies on the home opener front since 90.
Yeah, right. That's right. Wow. So you were at that game?
I was there as a fan, yeah. The home opener against the Steelers, where we got Schobert got an interception and was like already in field goal range. Remember in the rain, the deluge? And then we had the kick blocked, right, to win it in overtime?
Yeah, but when he returned it,
was
there was a penalty, I think, on Miles, wasn't there?
They pushed it back a
little. He hit somebody, and they got pushed back. And then they didn't move it at all. all.
No.
Right?
And then
they
Zane
got
Gonzalez.
the kick block. Right.
Yeah.
All right,
So many
guys.
tales of woe that
Today.
All right. We'll be back with more Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Ballybet, coming soon to Ohio. All right, so much more to come, as we like to say, but in reality, I think that'll be it for us today. Coming up next, you got the next level. Tomorrow on Browns Daily, Cleveland's own and Ohio State's Artyvis Powell will join me here in Berea. So we've got that to look forward to, which is nice. But today, what an absolute pleasure. Just a walk down, not always a fun memory lane, but a walk down memory lane nonetheless.
I think it's important we hold on to those memories.
That's right.
When they turn around, they will be worth the walk.
That's right. The pure joy that lies ahead of us. And unfortunately, we've got to wait till September for that pure joy to really start manifesting itself.
My God, the offseason in the NFL is long. When you don't make the playoffs, it's long.
And when
Isn't it?
It is very long. Yeah. Well, free agency was fun, and then it's like, okay, we got all these guys in here. Let's see them. Let's see what they look like as the Cleveland Browns. And the draft is going to be a little bit less exciting for us with no first or second. So, yes, it is a very long offseason. Jim, always a pleasure. Thanks for stopping by.
Absolutely.
All right, folks, the next level is next. You've been listening to Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Ballybet, coming soon to Ohio.